The night was cold. The sky above the old Ira road growled with thunder as rain poured without mercy. Most people were running for shelter, some under half-broken kiosks, others squeezing under shop roofs that still leaked like baskets. But one person didn't run. Benjamin. He was just 20, skinny from hunger but strong from hard work. His shirt, once white, was now grey with cement stains. His jeans were torn at the knee, his slippers half-worn from walking miles to a construction site every day. On his shoulder was a small nylon bag. Inside it was one loaf of bread and a tin of milk he planned to eat for dinner. He was tired, wet and shivering, but his eyes were kind. He was almost home when something made him stop. At the corner near the muddy drainage, a man lay on the ground. The rain washed over him and he didn't move. His clothes, an old blue kaftan, were soaked and clinging to his body. His face was full of mud. For a second, Benjamin thought he was dead. But then a weak cough broke through the sound of the rain. Benjamin froze. People were walking past him, some even stepping around the man as if he was trash. One woman muttered, "Leave maybe drunkard." Another man laughed, "This Lagos Don tire people oh." But Benjamin couldn't walk away. He dropped his bag in the mud and knelt beside the man. Sir, can you hear me?" he said softly. The man's lips trembled, his voice barely a whisper. "Help! Me!" Benjamin tried to lift him, but the man's body was heavy, too heavy for one person. Still, he bent down, pushed one arm under the man's shoulders, and lifted him onto his back. Mud splashed up his legs as he struggled to his feet. People stared. Nobody helped. As Benjamin started walking again, the rain poured harder. It washed the mud from his hair, but not the pain from his heart. He didn't know who this man was, or if he'd survive. But he knew one thing: he couldn't leave him there to die. When Benjamin finally reached his small room, his clothes were dripping wet. The roof leaked in 3 places. He laid the old man on his thin mattress and ran to boil some water using his rusty kettle. He mixed the milk with the little sugar he had left and made tea, then cut half of his bread and placed it beside the cup. "Please, try to drink," he said gently, raising the man's head. The man's hands trembled as he took the cup. He drank slowly, like someone who hadn't tasted warmth in years. When he finished, he closed his eyes and fell asleep. Benjamin sighed in relief. He sat beside him, watching his chest rise and fall. "You'll be fine, sir," he whispered. "I promise." Morning came with sunlight sneaking through the torn curtain. The sound of distant roosters filled the air. Benjamin woke up and turned. Thank God, the man was still alive. He opened his eyes, confused and weak. "Where am I?" he asked. "You're safe, sir," Benjamin replied with a small smile. "You fainted in the rain yesterday. I brought you here." The man looked around the tiny room, the cracked wall, the broken chair, the kettle on the floor. He touched his forehead. My name is..." He paused, his eyes wide. I can't remember." Benjamin frowned. "You don't remember your name?" The old man shook his head. "Nothing, not even where I live." Benjamin's heart broke. He didn't have much, but he couldn't throw him out. He took a deep breath. "Don't worry, you can stay here until you remember." That day, Benjamin didn't go to work. He used the little money he had left to buy pap and bread for both of them. When the man thanked him, Benjamin only smiled. "If my parents were alive, they'd do the same," he said quietly. The man smiled weakly. "You remind me of someone." By the 3rd day, Benjamin was down to his last 50 naira. He sat on his small stool, thinking about how to stretch it. The old man, whom he now called Baba, was lying on the mattress, sipping tea. Then, suddenly, there was a knock at the door. 3 sharp knocks. Benjamin looked up, surprised. "Who could that be?" he muttered. Hardly anyone visited him. He stood, wiped his hands, and opened the door. And then he froze. Outside the small one-room apartment stood 3 men in black suits. Behind them were black SUVs lined up along the dusty compound. Drivers and bodyguards stood around, and curious neighbors peeked through their windows. At the center of it all was a tall man in an expensive navy blue suit. His shoes shone like mirrors. He had the calm, powerful look of someone used to being in charge. "Are you Benjamin?" the man asked. "Yes, sir," Benjamin replied nervously. "I'm Andrew Johnson," the man said, his voice low and firm. Billionaire CEO of and a group of companies. He paused, looking Benjamin straight in the eye. I was told you saved my father. Benjamin blinked, shocked. Your father? Andrew nodded. Where is he? Benjamin slowly stepped aside. Please, come in. Inside, the sight melted Andrew's heart. His father, Mr. Johnson, was sitting on Benjamin's thin mattress, wrapped in a faded towel, sipping tea from a chipped cup. The billionaire's eyes filled with tears. Dad? He whispered. The old man looked up, confused at first. Then, suddenly, his eyes widened. Andrew. His voice cracked as tears rolled down his cheeks. Andrew, my son. Andrew rushed to him, kneeling beside the mattress. Dad, we've been looking for you for days. You went missing after your driver had that accident in Ikeja. The old man nodded slowly, memories returning. This boy saved me, he said, pointing at Benjamin with a trembling hand. He carried me through the rain, fed me with his last bread, took me in when no one cared. Andrew turned to Benjamin, eyes glistening. You did all that? Benjamin nodded shyly. He needed help, that's all. Andrew stood up. No, he said firmly. That's not all. You saved my father's life. He turned to his guards. Prepare the car, we're taking him to the hospital now. Then he faced Benjamin again. You're coming with us. Benjamin stepped back. Sir, I can't. Andrew smiled faintly. You can. Pack your things. And just like that, Benjamin's life changed forever. As the convoy rolled out of the compound, neighbors whispered in disbelief, watching the poor orphan sit beside a billionaire's father in the back seat of a luxury car. Benjamin looked through the tinted glass, heart pounding, wondering where this strange act of kindness was leading him. The hospital smelled of antiseptic and soft air conditioning. It was nothing like Benjamin's world of damp rooms and rusty kettles. The walls were white, the nurses moved like angels in spotless uniforms, and everything felt expensive. Benjamin sat quietly at the corner of the private ward, his hands folded, unsure where to look. He had never been in a hospital this big before. Mr. Johnson, now fully identified as the father of Billionaire, Andrew Johnson, lay on the hospital bed, covered in a warm blanket. He was breathing better, color slowly returning to his face. Andrew stood beside him, speaking softly to the doctor, while two security men guarded the door. Benjamin's heart raced. He still couldn't believe this was happening. Just 3 days ago, he was struggling to buy bread. Now, he was sitting in a hospital room that probably cost more than everything he had owned in his life. When Andrew finished talking to the doctor, he turned to Benjamin with a calm smile. You must be hungry. You've not eaten since morning. Benjamin nodded shyly. A little, sir. Andrew gestured to one of his assistants. Get him food. Moments later, a tray arrived, fried rice, chicken, and chilled juice. Benjamin hesitated, staring at it like it wasn't meant for him. Go ahead, Andrew said. It's yours. Benjamin whispered a small, thank you, before he began to eat slowly, almost carefully, as if one wrong bite could make it all disappear. Andrew watched him with quiet admiration. He had seen many people who pretended to be kind for attention or benefit, but this young man's actions came from somewhere pure, something real. That night, Andrew didn't leave the hospital. He stayed by his father's side. Around midnight, when most people were asleep, Mr. Johnson opened his eyes. Andrew, he whispered. Yes, Dad, Andrew said, leaning closer. The old man's voice was weak but clear. That boy, Benjamin, he saved me when no one else would. He gave me his food, his bed, his warmth. Promise me, you won't forget him. Andrew swallowed hard. I promise, Dad. Do more than thank him, Mr. Johnson said, his hand trembling as he gripped Andrew's. Bless him the way he blessed me. Andrew nodded, his eyes misty. I will, Dad, I will. The next morning, Benjamin was about to leave quietly. He had done his part, he thought. But just as he stepped out of the ward, a voice called, Benjamin. He turned. Andrew was standing behind him, holding a brown envelope. You're not going anywhere yet, Andrew said firmly. Benjamin frowned. Sir, I just wanted to go back to my room. I need to find work again. Andrew shook his head. You've worked enough, son. My father's alive because of you. You don't owe anyone anything. He handed Benjamin the envelope. Inside was a thick bundle of cash, more money than Benjamin had ever seen in his life. His hands trembled as he held it. "Sir, I can't take this," Benjamin said quickly. "I didn't help him because of money." Andrew smiled warmly. "I know, and that's why you deserve it even more." Benjamin stood still, speechless. Andrew continued, "You said you stopped school after secondary level, right?" "Yes, sir," Benjamin replied softly. Andrew nodded. "Then you're going back. You'll study whatever you want. I'll take care of everything." Benjamin's eyes widened. "School? But sir, that's too much." "It's not too much," Andrew interrupted gently. "It's what you've earned." Later that afternoon, the doctors confirmed that Mr. Johnson's condition had improved. He would be discharged in 2 days. When the news reached Benjamin, he smiled for the first time in days, a wide, honest smile that reached his tired eyes. But deep inside, he was afraid. He feared waking up one day to find all this was a dream, that he'd open his eyes back in his leaking room, holding a half loaf of bread, listening to the rain again. That night, he sat beside Mr. Johnson's bed as the old man slept peacefully. Andrew had gone to take a short rest. The hospital lights flickered softly, and Benjamin whispered to himself, "God, I don't know why you brought me here, but thank you." 2 days later, they drove to Andrew's mansion. The convoy stopped before a giant gate that opened automatically. Inside, Benjamin saw lawns that looked like they had never known dust. The house shone in the afternoon sun, 3 floors, glass walls, tall palm trees swaying by the fountain. His mouth fell open slightly. "This is your house?" he asked. Andrew smiled. "Our home, and you'll be staying here for a while." Benjamin almost dropped his bag. "Sir, I can't live here." Andrew laughed. "You can. You saved my father, remember? That makes you family." Inside, servants greeted them, bowing slightly as Mr. Johnson was wheeled into the living room. When Benjamin looked at the white leather chairs and golden chandelier, he felt completely out of place. His hands were still calloused from lifting bricks, his shoes were old, and his jeans had a tear near the knee. Andrew noticed his nervousness. "Don't be shy, you belong here now." Benjamin's eyes softened. "Thank you, sir, but please, call me Benjamin." Andrew nodded. "Then you'll call me Andrew." For the first time, Benjamin smiled freely. Days turned into weeks. Mr. Johnson recovered quickly. He would often sit on the balcony with Benjamin, watching the garden. Sometimes they would talk about life, sometimes just sit quietly. The old man treated Benjamin like a son, always asking, "Have you eaten?" or "Are you sleeping well?" And Andrew kept his promise. He enrolled Benjamin in a private university to study software engineering. When Benjamin received the admission letter, he held it to his chest with tears in his eyes. "This is my second chance," he whispered. Andrew clapped him on the shoulder. "It's your new beginning." But life was not without challenges. One evening, while Benjamin was studying in his room, a knock came at his door. It was Andrew's cousin, Collins, a tall man with slick hair and suspicious eyes. He had been watching Benjamin since the day he arrived. "So," Collins said with a cold smile, "you're the orphan everyone's talking about, the one who's replaced me in this house." Benjamin frowned slightly. "I haven't replaced anyone, sir. I'm just grateful they helped me." Collins stepped closer, whispering, "Watch your back, boy. Not everyone here is happy to see you rise." Benjamin didn't respond, but his heart tightened. He didn't know it yet, but Collins's jealousy would soon create the biggest storm of his life. The night Benjamin returned to the mansion was quiet, too quiet. The rain had stopped, but the air smelled of wet earth and fresh forgiveness. The large gates of Andrew's mansion swung open as the convoy of SUVs rolled in. The guards saluted sharply. Neighbors peeked from afar, whispering about the young man sitting beside the billionaire's father in the back seat. Benjamin kept his head low. His mind was heavy. He still couldn't believe everything that had happened, the false accusation, the shame, and now, the apology. When the car stopped, Andrew got out first, his face serious but soft. He walked over to Benjamin and said quietly, "You're home, Benjamin. Don't ever doubt that again." Benjamin nodded, emotion thick in his throat. "Thank you, sir." "Call me Andrew," the billionaire replied with a faint smile. "Family doesn't need titles." Inside, the mansion was full of light again. Mr. Johnson was sitting in the living room, wrapped in a shawl, a cup of tea in his hand. His face lit up the moment he saw Benjamin. "My son!" he cried, setting the cup aside. Come here. Benjamin rushed to him, dropping to his knees and hugging him tightly. The old man's eyes filled with tears. I told them you were innocent. I told them you had a heart too kind to do such evil. Benjamin smiled faintly. You were right, Baba. Truth always wins, even if it comes late. Andrew stood behind them, watching quietly. His heart ached with both guilt and admiration. Benjamin, he said, I'll spend the rest of my life making this right. Collins has been handed to the police. You have nothing to fear. Benjamin rose slowly, his eyes tired but glowing with relief. Thank you. I didn't help your father because I wanted anything in return. I did it because I couldn't walk away. Andrew nodded deeply. That's why you'll never have to walk away again. For days, peace returned to the mansion. Benjamin helped Mr. Johnson with morning walks in the garden. They laughed together, ate together, and spoke about life. But in the quiet corners of the house, some workers still whispered. They had seen Collins's arrest and were unsure what to believe. Imagine, one maid murmured to another, a poor boy living in a billionaire's house-like family. Miracle or manipulation? The other whispered back. Benjamin didn't hear them, but he felt the looks, the side glances, the sudden silences when he entered a room. He wasn't used to gossip. He was used to sweat, to labor, to kindness that asked for nothing. So he focused on gratitude. Every night, he wrote in a small notebook by his bed, Dear God, help me to remain humble, no matter where you take me. One evening, Andrew called Benjamin to his study. The room smelled of old wood and expensive perfume. Papers were neatly arranged on the desk, and the large window behind him opened to the glowing city. Benjamin, Andrew began, I've been thinking. My father was right. You deserve a future, not just a bed in my house. Benjamin frowned slightly. Sir? Andrew smiled. You're going back to school. University. You said you stopped after secondary because you couldn't afford it. That ends now. Benjamin's eyes widened. University? Sir, I can't. You can. Andrew interrupted kindly. And you will. You'll study software engineering. You're smart, curious, and hard-working, the kind of person this country needs. Benjamin's throat tightened. I don't even know how to thank you. Andrew leaned forward. You already did. You saved my father. The rest is my turn. Weeks later, the big day arrived. Benjamin stood at the gate of Lagos City University, dressed in new jeans and a crisp white shirt, a gift from Andrew. His backpack hung neatly on his shoulders. He took a deep breath and whispered to himself, From mud to marble. Thank you, God. Inside the campus, students hurried past, laughing and chatting. Benjamin smiled nervously as he found his way to the registration hall. Everything felt unreal. The tall buildings, the clean hallways, the students holding expensive phones. He remembered carrying Mr. Johnson on his back that rainy night. Now he was here, ready to learn, ready to grow. In his first class, he met her. Jessica, a two-year-old cybersecurity student with braided hair, bright eyes, and a confidence that filled the room. She sat beside Benjamin and immediately noticed his quiet nature. You look nervous, she said playfully. First day? Benjamin smiled shyly. Is it that obvious? She giggled. A little. Don't worry, I'll show you around. I'm a final year student, so I practically live here. That was the start of something Benjamin didn't expect: friendship. Every day after that, Jessica found him in the library or cafeteria. They studied together, shared lunch, and soon, laughter became part of their routine. But life inside the university wasn't as kind as Jessica was. Some students had seen Benjamin arrive once in Andrew's black SUV. They whispered behind his back, Isn't that the orphan living with the billionaire? Bet he's only here because of pity. He's pretending to be humble. Watch. Benjamin heard them once, while standing near the school gate. The words cut deep, but he didn't reply. Instead, he smiled faintly and walked away. Later that night, he wrote again in his notebook, I won't let their voices be louder than my dreams. Back at the mansion, all wasn't truly calm. Collins's allies, two business partners he had helped in shady deals, were angry about his arrest. They began spreading rumors online, saying Andrew's company had adopted a street boy to clean its image. Andrew ignored the lies, but Benjamin saw the headlines one morning on his phone. Poor orphan living in billionaire's mansion, PR, stunt or true kindness. He felt his heart sink. It wasn't the words that hurt him, it was the idea that kindness had to be explained or justified. He turned off the phone and whispered, "I'll prove myself through work, not words." That evening, Mr. Johnson invited Benjamin to the balcony for tea. The sun painted the sky orange and a gentle breeze blew across the garden. "My son," Mr. Johnson began softly, "I saw those things online. Don't let them steal your joy. The world mocks what it doesn't understand." Benjamin nodded slowly. "I just want to make you proud, sir." The old man smiled. "You already have. You gave me more than life, you gave me faith in humanity again." They sat in silence after that, watching the sunset, one poor orphan and one old billionaire, connected not by blood, but by something far greater, kindness. Weeks later, Benjamin's hard work began to show. He was top of his class, respected by professors, and quietly admired by his peers. Jessica encouraged him to join a tech club where students built projects together. "Come on," she said one day, grinning. "You might just change the world one code at a time." Benjamin laughed. "Maybe, but first, let me change my life." What he didn't know was that the small project he would build in that club, a simple app designed to help families detect online fraud, would one day become the key that opened doors he never dreamed possible. The sound of rain tapping gently against the dormitory window brought back memories of that night, the muddy road, the old man in his arms, the cold that almost stole his breath. Benjamin sat on the edge of his bed, laptop open, fingers moving fast across the keyboard. The blue light of the screen reflected in his tired but determined eyes. He had been working on something for weeks, a mobile app that could detect and warn people about fraudulent messages, fake job offers, and online scams. He called it SafeLink. It started as a simple idea for his university tech club assignment. But the more he worked on it, the more he realized it could actually save lives, especially for people like those in his old neighborhood who fell victim to fake investment messages and job scams every day. He wanted to give them what no one had given him growing up, a chance to trust safely. One evening, the university held a tech innovation showcase. Students from different departments presented their projects before judges and invited guests from companies across Nigeria. Jessica helped Benjamin carry his old laptop to the auditorium. She was just as excited as he was, even though she pretended not to show it. "Remember," she teased, adjusting his collar, "smile when you talk. You look like a scared genius when you don't." Benjamin chuckled nervously. "I'm only scared of the generator going off mid-presentation." Jessica rolled her eyes. "Relax. I'll stand by the screen. You just focus on your dream." When it was his turn, Benjamin stepped onto the stage. The hall was filled with people, students, professors, and a few tech executives in fine suits. Among them sat a familiar face he didn't expect to see. Andrew. The billionaire had come unannounced, dressed simply in a blue shirt and blazer, sitting quietly beside Mr. Johnson, who smiled proudly like a father watching his son graduate. Benjamin's heart nearly stopped when he saw them. But he took a deep breath, smiled, and began. "Good evening, everyone," he said, his voice shaking slightly at first. "My name is Benjamin. I'm a software engineering student, and this is my project, SafeLink." He clicked a button, and a simple interface appeared on the projector screen. SafeLink is an app that helps detect fake websites, scam messages, and false job offers. It warns users in real time before they click or share personal information. He demonstrated how it worked by scanning a fake job post. Within seconds, the app flashed a red warning, "Scam detected." Murmurs of surprise filled the room. Then he added quietly, "This idea came from my own experience. I've seen good people lose their savings because they didn't know what was real. I want to change that." By the time he finished, the hall erupted in applause. Some students even stood up. Jessica grinned proudly, tears glistening in her eyes. And at the back of the hall, Andrew and Mr. Johnson exchanged a silent look, the kind only two proud fathers share. After the event, Benjamin was surrounded by people shaking his hand and congratulating him. But it was Andrew's voice that cut through the noise. "Benjamin." Benjamin turned and froze. The billionaire walked toward him, clapping slowly with a wide smile. "You've done it again, my boy. I didn't know you had this kind of brilliance hiding inside you." Benjamin smiled shyly. "I just wanted to build something useful." Andrew placed a hand on his shoulder. Useful? This could change digital safety in Nigeria. Come see me at Anda Group tomorrow. I want my tech team to take a look. Benjamin's heart raced. Are you serious? Andrew nodded. Dead serious. And Benjamin, you're leading the presentation. Jessica's mouth dropped open. Wait, you? At Anda Group? That's huge. Benjamin just stood there, dazed. Everything felt like a dream he was afraid to wake up from. The next morning, Benjamin walked into Anda Group headquarters in Victoria Island for the first time. The tall glass building seemed to stretch into the sky. Employees in suits moved briskly through the lobby, and his reflection in the marble floor looked too ordinary for such a place. Jessica had come along for support. You'll be fine, she whispered as they entered the elevator. Just be yourself and talk like you're explaining something to me, not to billionaires. He smiled. You always make it sound easy. That's why you need me, she said, grinning. When the elevator doors opened on the 10th floor, they stepped into a boardroom full of executives. Andrew sat at the head of the table, his father beside him, looking healthier than ever. Welcome, Benjamin, Andrew said warmly. Let's see your magic. Benjamin's fingers shook slightly as he connected his laptop to the screen. The executives watched closely, arms folded, expressions unreadable. This, Benjamin began, is SafeLink. It detects scam messages, phishing links, and fake websites before you open them. He clicked a button, demonstrating how the app blocked a fake financial link. The room was silent at first, then murmurs of approval followed. One of the top engineers leaned forward. This is impressive. You built this alone? Benjamin nodded. Yes, sir, but I believe with a stronger team, we can scale it. Andrew looked around the room. Gentlemen, I think we just met the future of Anda Group's digital security division. Everyone clapped. Mr. Johnson wiped his eyes. Benjamin, he said softly, your kindness that night didn't just save my life, it saved your own future. After the meeting, Andrew called Benjamin into his office. Son, he said, I want you to lead the development of SafeLink under Anda Group. You'll have a team, a salary, and full resources. I'll handle the rest. Benjamin was speechless. Sir, I don't know what to say. Andrew smiled. Say yes. Benjamin nodded slowly. Yes, sir, thank you. As they shook hands, Jessica appeared at the door, her eyes sparkling. So, CEO Benjamin, huh? He laughed. Not yet, she teased. Don't forget me when you become one. He grinned. How could I? You believed in me before anyone else did. Months passed. SafeLink became a national success, downloaded by thousands across Nigeria. It was featured on news channels, praised by banks, and even recommended by the government. Benjamin's name began to appear in tech magazines, the orphan who built Nigeria's smartest scam detector. But none of that mattered more than the moment Andrew handed him a new key one evening. What's this? Benjamin asked. Andrew smiled. Your new apartment, close to the company. You've earned your own space. Benjamin's hands trembled as he held the key. I don't even know how to thank you. Live well, Andrew said softly. That's thanks enough. One night, after a long day at work, Benjamin met Jessica at the rooftop terrace of his new place. The city lights sparkled below them like a blanket of stars. They sat side by side, sipping juice from glass bottles. Jessica looked at him and smiled. You've changed, you know. You're more confident now. Benjamin laughed lightly. Maybe. Or maybe I finally believe I deserve this life. She turned to him. You do, you always did. For a long moment, they sat in silence. The wind blew softly. Then Benjamin reached for her hand. Jessica, I know I don't have the right words, but... She smiled knowingly. You don't need them. And there, under the Lagos night sky, Benjamin finally realized that kindness had led him not only to success, but also to love the kind that grew from respect, trust, and shared dreams. Weeks later, Mr. Johnson stood in the mansion garden, holding a tiny baby girl wrapped in pink cloth. Jessica and Benjamin stood beside him, their faces glowing with joy. The old man's hands trembled as he kissed the baby's forehead. She's beautiful, he whispered. What's her name? Benjamin smiled. Grace. Because everything we have, life, love, and family, is by grace. Mr. Johnson's eyes filled with tears. When I was lying in the rain that night, I thought my story had ended. But God sent me an angel, and now, through you, Benjamin, my story began again. The wind rustled softly through the flowers. The house behind them glowed warm and golden in the evening light. Benjamin held Jessica's hand as she leaned on his shoulder, their baby sleeping peacefully. The poor orphan who once carried a dying man through the rain now stood in a garden of light, loved, fulfilled, and thankful. And as Mr. Johnson whispered a quiet prayer of gratitude, the world seemed to echo it back in silence. Kindness never dies, it only multiplies. The morning sun spread golden light over the Ander Group headquarters. It was another busy day, workers moving briskly through the glass doors, cars gliding in and out of the company compound, and somewhere on the 12th floor, Benjamin sat by his wide office window, watching Lagos come alive. He wore a simple navy blue suit, nothing flashy, just neat, elegant, and confident. On the wall behind him hung a framed photo. Benjamin carrying Mr. Johnson through the rain, captured years later when Andrew recreated the moment for an internal company award. Beneath the photo were the words, "It all began with kindness." Benjamin smiled every time he looked at it. It reminded him that no matter how high he climbed, he was still that boy who had carried a dying man through a storm. That weekend, Benjamin told Jessica, "I want to go home to where it all started." Jessica looked up from where she was feeding baby Grace and smiled softly. "To Ira?" He nodded. "It's time. I left that place poor, but I want to return with purpose." Mr. Johnson overheard and smiled proudly. "That's my boy. Never forget the road that made you." 2 days later, Benjamin's black SUV rolled slowly into the familiar dusty streets of Ira. The same crooked zinc roofs stood above muddy compounds, the same cracked walls, and the same smell of roasted corn and diesel filled the air. Children paused their play to watch the cars. Women at roadside stalls whispered, "Who is that? Looks important." When Benjamin stepped out, wearing a calm smile, some recognized him. "Isn't that Benjamin? The orphan boy who used to carry cement sacks?" He nodded politely and waved. But he wasn't there to show off, he was there to build. Benjamin gathered the community under the old mango tree near the market square. Some came out of curiosity, others out of disbelief. "My name is Benjamin," he began, holding a microphone the local youth center provided. "I was born here, I suffered here. And this ground, this same mud once carried me when I had nowhere to go." The crowd murmured softly. He continued, "Years ago, I carried an old man through this same rain-soaked road, not knowing that my kindness that night would lead me to the life I have now. Today, I came back not to boast, but to give back." He paused, taking a deep breath. Behind him, workers pulled away a white cloth to reveal a large billboard. The Johnson and Benjamin Foundation for Orphans and Street Children. The crowd gasped. Benjamin smiled warmly. "This will be a home for children who have no one, just like I once did. They'll go to school, learn skills, and have a bed to sleep on. No child here will ever have to choose between kindness and hunger again." Applause broke out slow at first, then thunderous. Some cried, others clapped with both hands raised high. An old woman, her back bent with age, came forward with tears streaming down her face. "I used to chase you from my kiosk when you begged for bread," she said shakily. "I'm sorry, my son." Benjamin reached out and held her trembling hands. "You don't need to be sorry, Mama. You did what life taught you, but we can all learn to do better now." The crowd fell, silent, humbled, moved. In the weeks that followed, construction began. The foundation funded a new school block, a small health center, and dormitories for orphans. Local men were employed to build, local women were hired as cooks and caregivers. Benjamin insisted, "Every person who works here must come from this community. We rise together." Andrew visited the site often, standing quietly as he watched the transformation. "You've done something I never could," he told Benjamin one afternoon. "You didn't just build a company, you built hope." Benjamin smiled. "You gave me the chance to. Now it's my turn." Months later, Ander Group hosted its annual Innovation and Humanitarian Awards. The large ballroom glittered with lights. CEOs, politicians, and artists filled the hall. Cameras flashed as guests arrived, but one moment silenced the entire crowd. The host announced, "And this year's National Humanitarian Award goes to Mr. Benjamin Okafor, for his remarkable act of kindness that changed lives and built the Johnson and Benjamin Foundation." Applause thundered as Benjamin walked to the stage. Jessica beamed proudly, holding baby Grace in her arms. Mr. Johnson and Andrew stood, clapping with tears glistening in their eyes. Benjamin took the microphone and looked around the hall filled with powerful people. "I was once a poor orphan," he began softly. "One night, I carried a dying man through the rain, not knowing who he was. I didn't do it for reward. I did it because kindness doesn't ask questions, it just acts." He paused, letting the words sink in. "That man turned out to be the father of a billionaire who changed my life. But the truth is, none of this started with wealth. It started with compassion. And today, I stand here to tell you, you never lose by being kind. You only multiply love." The hall erupted in applause again, standing ovation, cameras flashing, hearts stirred. That night, when the ceremony ended and Benjamin's car rolled through the mansion gate, something unusual happened. An old man stood by the gate, soaked from the light rain, coughing weakly. The guards hesitated, but Benjamin, noticing from the car window, immediately said, "Wait." He stepped out and walked toward the man. "Sir, are you all right?" Benjamin asked gently. The man shook his head weakly. I was walking from the park. I fainted once. I don't feel my legs." Without hesitation, Benjamin knelt beside him. Rain fell softly on his shoulders. He looked up toward the mansion lights, and in that exact moment, his mind flashed back to years ago. The rain, the mud, the helpless man he had carried. And now, life had come full circle. He turned to his driver. "Help me carry him inside. He needs warmth." The driver rushed to help, but Benjamin lifted the man himself, steady, firm, and kind, just as he had done before. Later that night, Jessica found him sitting quietly by the fire in the living room. The rescued man slept peacefully in a guest room. "You didn't have to do all that," she whispered softly, sitting beside him. Benjamin smiled faintly. "Yes, I did. Because someone once said—" He paused, glancing at the photo of Mr. Johnson on the wall, smiling back at him. "Kindness that saves a life never really ends. It keeps moving, from one heart to another." Jessica leaned her head on his shoulder, their baby sleeping between them. The rain outside slowed to a gentle drizzle, and Benjamin looked out the window, whispering one final prayer. "Thank you, God, for turning pain into purpose, for teaching me that even in the mud, flowers can grow." Years later, Grace, their daughter, stood before a classroom full of children at the Johnson and Benjamin Foundation School. Her soft voice carried the same warmth her father once had. She told them, "My father used to say, if the world ever forgets how to care, remind it with your kindness." The children clapped and laughed, unaware that the story they were learning about the boy who saved a dying man in the rain was the story of her very own father. And outside, the statue of Benjamin carrying Mr. Johnson stood proudly at the gate, with the inscription, "He lifted one man and lifted the world." If you like this story, comment, share and subscribe to our channel for more interesting stories.